Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of OptoBharat, I warmly welcome all participants, optometrists, students, and eye care professionals joining us from different parts of the world. My name is Sadaf Khan, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. We are delighted to host an insightful session on myopia management, a topic of growth, importance in modern eye care. Before we begin, I would like to share a few housekeeping guidelines. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the session. Feel free to submit your question in the chat box during the presentation. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. E-certificate will be provided to eligible participants after the session. It's now my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Mikhail Joy Segmet from the Philippines. Dr. Segmet is a Doctor of Optometry from Centro Escloro University, Manila, and currently serves as an optometry clinician at the Vision Eye Care. She has completed advanced training in pediatric, eye care, vision therapy, and specialty contact lenses. She is also an active member of several professional organizations, including the Integral Philippine Association of Optometrists and the Asian Optometric Congress. Today, she will share her knowledge, clinical insightful, and understand myopia, its progression, and modern management strategies. Please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Ms. Ma'am. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Corinne. Welcome for today's webinar on myopia management. For decades, the primary objective of eye care providers facing a myopic patient was purely refractive correction, neutralizing a blurred focal point with single vision minus lens. Today, we stand on the precipice of a global public health shift. Myopia can no longer be viewed as a simple refractive error. It is progressive, structural ocular disease that demands early aggressive therapeutic intervention. To manage myopia effectively, we must first unify our clinical vocabulary according to the International Myopia Institute. By definition, myopia is a refractive condition in which parallel rays of light enter the non-accommodating eye and focus anterior or in front of the retina. This misaligned focal point results in blurred distance vision while near vision remains clear. Look at the structural schematic on this slide. In a normal emmetropic eye, the axial length and corneal curvature are perfectly matched, focusing light sharply on the retina surface. In the myopic eye, the physical shape of the eye focuses light in front of the retina, primarily due to an elongated eyeball. How do we classify the severity of this condition? We utilize the spherical equivalent refraction or SE. The International Myopia Institute stratifies myopia into three primary clinical zones. The first one is pre-myopia. Involves children with a refractive state between -50 and +75 who exhibit risk factor. Second, low myopia ranges from -50 to -5 diopter. Third, high myopia is defined as spherical equivalent of -6 or an axial length of 26 millimeter. The age at which myopia first manifests dictate its lifetime progression curve and ultimate pathological risk profile. We classify onset into four distinct developmental windows. The first one is congenital myopia, which is present at birth or during early infancy and strongly dictated by genetics and hereditary, yielding a high initial diopter error. The second one is youth onset myopia, which is the most prevalent window for new case and highly dangerous because it co-occurs with active skeletal growth, leading to rapid aggressive progression. The third one is early adult onset myopia, where new case or continued progression actually caused by heavily driven by intense occupational environment. And lastly, late adult onset myopia, which is typically secondary to physical alteration within the crystalline lens. Why are we so determined to halt the axial elongation? Because of pathological myopia. The International Myopia Institute defines pathological myopia as excessive axial lengthening that causes structural damage to the posterior segment of the eye. The foundational hallmark of this condition is posterior staphyloma, an outward bulging or protrusion of the posterior pole of the eye. To grade this structural change, we use the standardized ATN classification system. A stands for atrophic, where structural lesion progress from tessellated fundus to diffuse chorioretinal atrophy, patchy atrophy, and ultimately macular holes. T stand for traction, involving physical tissue pooling resulting in foviochiasis, macular holes, and full thickness retinal detachment. And N stand for neovascular, representing the development of lacquer cracks, choroidal neovascularization, and Fuchs patch. We must implement management strategies early to protect our patient from entering this destructive ATN cascade. Let's, trans- let's transition from individual pathology to macroepidemiology. The landmark global demographic projection by Holden revealed an alarming trajectory by the year 2050. 50% of the world population, approximately 5 billion people, will be myopic. Even more concerning, 10% of the population, around 1 billion people, will fall into high myopia. Urban regions are seeing rapid escalation. Urban school age prevalence has jumped from 4.4% to over 21.1% in recent data, heavily caused by near work demand and reduced outdoor exposure. To halt this disease, we must understand its biophysical mechanism. The primary physical cause of myopia is axial elongation, the progressive physical stretching and lengthening of the eye. As a baseline clinical rule, in every 1 millimeter increase in structural axial length correspond to -2 to -2.50 diopter myopic refractive shift. An axial length of 23 millimeter represent a plano. At 24 millimeter, the eye shift to -2. At 25 millimeter, the eye reaches -450 diopter. And at 26 millimeter, the patient crosses into high myopia. Why does an eye keep elongating? The answer lies in the peripheral defocus theory. When we prescribe standard single vision spectacle lens, we correct only the central vision. Rays bend perfectly on the central fovea, giving the patient a clear vision. However, because of the natural oblate shape of the eye, this single vision lens push peripheral light rays behind the peripheral retina, creating peripheral hyperopic defocus. This peripheral blur acts as an unintended biological trigger. The retina detects that the image focus is behind it, releasing chemical signal that instruct the eye to remodel and elongate to reach the light. Advanced myopia control lens change this biology. They provide a clear central image of the fovea, but pull peripheral light rays forward, focusing them in the front of the peripheral retina, creating peripheral myopic defocus. Bringing light in front of the peripheral retina act as a powerful structural stop signal, inhibiting further eye elongation. Myopia development is governed by continuous interaction between genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factor. Let's look closely at the genetic risk factor. Parental history is very critical. Having one myopic parent triples the risk, while two myopic parents increase the risk 5 times to 6 times. However, for environment and lifestyle factor can alter the genetic destiny. The core environmental and lifestyle risk factor include prolonged near work closer than 30 centimeter, lack of outdoor time, and excessive use of digital device. Current refractive baseline of less than plus 75 of hyperopia at age 6, meaning emmetropization buffer is gone, and binocular vision anomalies such as high ACA ratio. To practice modern myopia management, we must transition from simple subjective refraction to an advanced testing diagnosis. A standard evaluation must include these core elements. First, visual acuity. Second, retinoscopy. Third, autorefractometer. Fourth, cycloplegic refraction. Fifth, slit lamp. Six, OCT scan. And lastly, corneal topography. While refraction tells us what lens cleared the vision, it does not reveal the true physical state of the disease. Comprehensive management requires advanced structural and functional tracking. First, ocular biometer. Tracking Asian length allows us to measure physical eye growth down to the micrometer and daily evaluate treatment efficacy. Second, keratometer. Evaluating corneal curvature is vital to determine whether patient myopia is strictly caused by axial lengthening or by cornea. Third, binocular vision and accommodative evaluation. These target the functional growth accelerant. We must perform specialized testing of accommodative facility, accommodative log via MEM retinoscopy, and near binocular posture using modified Torrington Fourier tracking. Moving to the role of binocular vision in myopia management. We must tailor our approach based on the patient Fourier status. When we encounter myopia with esophoria, our clinical rationale centers on the near lag of accommodation and its association with axial elongation. The primary management goal here is to reduce the accommodative demand on the patient. Clinically, we look to intervention strategies such as progressive additional lens or bifocal to reduce hyperopic defocus. In cases of myopia with exophoria, We often see different clinical drivers, such as convergence insufficiency, which can lead to significant visual fatigue and asthenopia. For this patient, the strategy shift. While full distance correction is essential to maintain orthophonic alignment, our treatment modalities prioritize vision therapy to address the underlying binocular dysfunction alongside lens modification. It is vital to distinguish between true structural myopia and pseudomyopia. Pseudomyopia or accommodative spasm is often caused by ciliary muscle locking due to stress during intensive near work. Our therapeutic goal here is not necessarily immediate structural intervention, but rather a restoring autonomic control through accommodative facility training. A cycloplegic refraction remain the gold standard to differentiate this from true myopia. In contrast of structural myopia is defined primarily by axial elongation, while vision therapy is highly effective for resolving the blur associated with pseudomyopia. It does not address the structural refractive change of true axial elongation, which require myopia control lens or pharmacological intervention. To integrate this into practice, we advocate for a three-pillar approach: visual hygiene, reinforcing the 2020 rule, and maintaining proper reading distance. Environmental factor, increasing time spent outdoor. Clinical oversight, conducting regular functional visual evaluation to monitor the health of both binocular function and axial length. Once diagnosed, how do we treat it? We must distinguish between myopia correction and myopia control. Correction simply bends light to clear distance vision using standard single vision lens, leaving peripheral hyperopic defocus and unaddressed. Control means actively slowing down the rate of physical axial elongation. Our active therapeutic toolkit contains four validated modalities: advanced myopia control, contact lens intervention, pharmacological intervention, vision therapy, and binocular management. These are paired with critical lifestyle modification, such as enforcing outdoor daylight exposure and managing near work habits. Let's explore the specific technology available to us. Advanced spectacle lens utilize optical microstructure to provide clear central vision while maintaining peripheral treatment defocus zone. The first type is defocus incorporated multiple segment. Example, Hoya Mayo Smart. Features a central clear zone surrounded by a honeycomb treatment zone containing hundreds of individual microlenses that provide a constant plus 350 peripheral myopic defocus. The second type is highly aspherical lens target. Example, Essilor Steles. Utilize concentric rings of highly aspherical lenslet to create a volume of myopic defocus in front of the retina. And the third type is Zeiss MyoCare. Introduce target structural stop signal across the mid-peripheral retina. Orthokeratology involves rigid, reverse geometry, gas-permeable contact lens worn overnight, reshaping the central cornea epithelium, flattening it to eliminate the central refractive error. Pharmacological intervention using low-dose atropine act directly on sclera or retinal receptor to inhibit tissue remodeling. The landmark LAMP study confirmed an efficacy dose response curve, establishing that 0.05% atropine is more effective than 0.1 at controlling axial growth. Let's ground this concept in a clinical case study. A female child aged 7 years old presenting as a grade 2 student in an urban school setting. She experienced high academic demand with screen time averaging 4 hours daily outside of school hours. The patient presented with frequent squinting, sitting close to the television, with mild dull frontal headache toward the evening. Her parents also reported blurry of vision at distance over these past 6 months. For family history, both parents are myopic. Her mother is a minus 5.50 diopter, while her father is 6.25 diopter sphere. And also, her grandfather has an history of retina detachment. For lifestyle, intensive near work at a close working distance of less than 25 centimeter paired with minimal daylight exposure of less than 30 minutes daily. Our baseline examination revealed a severe progression profile. For unaided distance visual acuity was 624 in both eye. Dry subjective refraction showed minus 3.50 diopter in the right eye and 3.25 in the left eye. Our cycloplegic refraction revealed 3.25 in the right eye and minus 3 in the left eye, exposing 0.25 of latent over-accommodation. For ocular biometer, axial length measurement of 24.57 millimeter in the right eye and 24.48 millimeter in the left eye. Keratometer reading was normal. For binocular posture and accommodative function testing, it was revealed 4 diopters of esophoria. Her accommodative lag was high at plus 150, and accommodative amplitude was reduced at 9 diopter. This specific combination, high accommodative lag paired with near esophoria, caused severe hyperopic retina defocus during near tasks, serving as an aggressive functional cause for rapid axial elongation. We designed an aggressive, multi-pronged treatment regimen to address both optical and biochemical growth factor. For optical intervention, we prescribe highly aspherical lenslet target for full-time wear to address central visual blur while providing peripheral myopic defocus. For pharmaceutical intervention, by initiating nightly instillation of 0.05 atropine in both eyes. For lifestyle modification, by mandating a minimum of 90 to 120 minutes of daily outdoor activity and enforcing a strict 30 centimeter minimum near work distance. Let's look at the 2-year follow-up data to evaluate the success of this clinical strategy. Without therapeutic intervention, an urban child with this high-risk profile typically progress at rate of -1 to -125 annually. Our combination therapy limit the total 2-year refractive shift to just 0.25 in both eyes. It restricted axial growth to 0.4 millimeter per year. Furthermore, her accommodative rank normalized from plus 150 down to plus 50, completely eliminating hyperopic defocus. Colleague, the evidence is clear. We must change how we practice. Optometrists must transition from refractive tech retailers to primary pediatric vision care specialists. We can no longer simply prescribe single vision minus lens and watch our patient eye elongate toward pathology. To implement this transformation, every practitioner here should adopt this three-step action plan. Mandatory screening protocol, establish standard clinical practice where every child under 14 receive baseline of cycloplegic refraction, ocular biometer, and binocular posture check. Second, for public awareness campaign, actively engage with your local communities, educate school, teachers, and parenting organizations regarding the impact of close near work distance, effect of the use of digital devices, and the critical preventive benefits of outdoor daylight exposure. And the third one is commercial and medical network building. Strengthen regional partnership to create a unified myopia management ecosystem. Let's work together to protect the long-term ocular health of the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the informative and engaging presentation. We truly appreciate your valuable insight and expertise. We will now move on the Q&A session. Participant may post their question in the chat box. So there is question.
Hi, for the first question, can myopia management be combined with other treatment? Yes, myopia management can be combined with other treatment, like I said, like orthokeratology plus atropine. This one of the most studied and frequent use combination. And myopia control lenses plus atropine. I can see the shot.
There is one question that can RL RL therapy be useful for myopia patient, or if it useful, then how to improve vision?
Come again?
The question is, can RL therapy be useful for myopic patient, or if it is useful, then how it improve vision?
Mm.